major war, the Great War is known as, that they decided to bring us on board in terms of governance and administration of what today is the subcontinent of South Asia. Two political events happened, one in the 1880s when Congress was formed as a party, and in 1906 when the All India Muslim League came into being as a political party. Congress party was set up by a former civil servant by the name of Hume. The All India Muslim League was set up by His Highness the Aga Khan. They learnt as they went along in the parties and their leadership of participation in the future of what transpired to evolve as the nation states of Pakistan and India and now Bangladesh. Sri Lanka came along, Nepal came along, Sikkim came along, Afghanistan was always a nation state of SAARC, now the 8 members, Maldives is there. But as the struggle for independence was there, the political ethic, the political ethos, the political evolution of the locals vis-a-vis the then superpower, Britain was the superpower at that time, and it developed as a superpower on the basis of the Industrial Revolution of 1760 to 1789, when 25% of the world's GDP was in the hands of Britain. And that is why they dominated. They controlled the oceans of the world. The British Navy controlled the oceans of the world, and this is how the impact of their empire was played out on the scene. Later on, in 1914, when the power was challenged, they did win in 1919, and because of the 1.5 million of the then Indians who came along and shared their struggle in the war, they decided through different acts of parliament to bring people on board to administer and govern India. In that struggle, initially, there was 2 types of philosophic thought, if I may use that word, or political terminology. One based on that once India gains independence, there will be a unified element which will govern. And the other, and the theme I think developed much earlier in the 19th century under Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, that no, because the Muslims were probably a ratio 1:3 to the then larger community of Hindus, we would like to maintain our own identity. And that struggle then created that All India Muslim League, 1906, much later than when the Aligarh Muslim College was formed. And those who were looking ahead realized that the tools of administration, which were the British Army or the British Indian Army, second was the Indian Civil Service, because politics came much later. These were the elements through which Britain controlled the people of India. And as this revolution came about, as I said earlier, 1919, and then they had several commissions visiting India, and then that emerged that 1935 Government of India Act, which is the basis for all subsequent constitutions of the subcontinent, be it the Constitution of India 1949, be it the Constitution of Pakistan 1956, 1973, be it the Constitution of Sri Lanka, be it the Constitution of Bangladesh. That was the largest bill at that time which had gone through the House of Commons. Why do I go back to these historical elements? Because they also show how the power elements were working in the last century and how they actually synthesized at the time when independence and sovereignty were attained by the two successor states to British India, India and Pakistan. It's important because that also shows, if you look at the viceroys which governed India for 90 years, there were two trends amongst those viceroys. One was looking at the Congress point of view, the other was very sympathetic to the All India Muslim League. Curzon was the one who divided Bengal in 1906. He divided Bengal. But such was the political element that came out from the Hindu side, the Congress side, that they forced the subsequent Viceroy Harding to finish off that after 6 years, and Bengal was reunified. How many of us remember that element of history? I raise these issues because it goes much further, that mindset, the way the people were thinking at that time, that they were already thinking that once the British leave, what will happen to the subcontinent? Most of us don't look at that. We just look at today and a little bit tomorrow and maybe a little bit in the past. But this kind of governance, administration, because India was not always totally, the British were very clever and formed their own point of view sitting in London. They administered through literally few thousand people. They were governing 400 million people. And why? How did they manage that? They managed it because they evolved systems where their own people were extremely accountable to Whitehall and Westminster. Not at all accountable to the people here. But they felt that in administering and governing the subcontinent, they were able to maintain what they, in their thoughts, they were total colonialists, they were total imperialists. But they also wanted some kind of a balance amongst the communities they governed. And I said, Lord Curzon and others realized, some of the viceroys, that the Muslims, with their great past of being emperors, of being rulers of India, had a kind of a latent element in their psyche, in their minds, which will at certain times revive itself. And it did revive itself. Initially, the India Muslim League, even the Qaid was a member of the Congress to start with. He then became a member of both parties and ultimately was totally disillusioned once Mahatma Gandhi came on board in the Congress. But that very element, which brought about that kind of a long-term perspective, looked at the whole scenario differently. The struggle went on. And under the 1935 Government of India, at the first elections, at the provincial levels were held in 37, 11 provinces, 7 of them went to Congress. And then came the real change in the psyche of the Musliman. What was the psyche? That the Congress in those provinces where they became governors were not willing to allow the Muslims to share any kind of power. 1940 was the result of the Minto Park Lahore resolution, now called the Pakistan resolution, which stated in emphatic terms the Muslim majority areas will become the state of Pakistan, or states of Pakistan were the words actually used. That was the basis, the raison d'etre, the Grundnorm, as the Germans call it, of the state of Pakistan. And what transpired after that? The World War II starts, the Congress says the British government has not consulted us, so we resign. Quaid-e-Azam, the Honorable M.A. Jinnah, decided in his wisdom, no, we will be part of the government. And that sustained us in a manner where some of our people got to know what the methodology of governance was. We became part and parcel of the architecture of governance and administration of India at that time. When the 46 elections took place to the Constituent Assembly of India, followed by the provincial elections, the Muslim League emerged as the real representatives of the Muslims of India. In the Punjab alone, out of 90 seats reserved for the Muslims, out of 190, the Punjab, the old Punjab, 190 with the seats, 90 were reserved for Muslims, 79 seats went to the All India Muslim League. That was where the real paradigm shift took place. In Sindh, the Muslim League won. Frontier was a different story. Subsequently, through a referendum, Sylhet and Frontier became part of Pakistan. Bengal, of course, was in the lead. And that was the basis of the creation of the state of Pakistan. The 580-odd princely states, which were not part of the British India, directly but indirectly. As I said, the British were very clever. They governed, they didn't want to spend money, they used to extract resources out of India. India and China 200 years ago used to generate 40% of the world's GDP before the colonialists came into our regions. 40% of the GDP of the world was generated. How many of you know that? I didn't know it till I started looking at things a little more intricately. And then when partition took place, China and India were only generating 7% of the GDP. So over a period of 200 years, that is the kind of resource they extracted out of our systems. And now when China has re-emerged as the second superpower of the world with $14 trillion economy, with America 22 trillion, and India is now at 3 trillion, Pakistan is 0.3 trillion, the reversal has started. Because we are self-governing. We are looking at our own interests. More importantly, how does this thing reflect on the problem today? It has a direct impact on the way what has happened in Kashmir. When the British were transferring power, tragically for our part of the country, they were not fair. They were not neutral. Why would you say that? Because the basis, Congress was not agreeing to it. They very reluctantly, when the cabinet mission plan came, 46, ABC, the Muslim League immediately agreed. Congress said, no, we have reservations. Then the Honorable M.A. Jinnah said, okay, we also then don't want it. And what happened? Then the transfer plan came. A new viceroy was brought in only for 150 days. Mr. Wavell, who was much more sympathetic to the All India Muslim League, was removed, and in came Lord Louis Mountbatten, a member of the then royal family. What did he do? He then, tragically for Pakistan, and what happened in Kashmir, of which we are lamenting 72 years later, how to get out of this dilemma. What happened was that the basis of partition was Muslim majority areas. Bengal came straight to us, Punjab came straight to us, Sindh came, Sylhet, and the then NWFP had to go through a referendum which said we go with Pakistan. And then the partition plan, July 4th, I think June 4th, 1947. What was the plan? Mr. Ratcliffe was imported, a judge who'd never been to the subcontinent, assisted by a commission. And what happened in that boundary plan? That laid the basis of the, if I may use the word, the cancer, which was that Gurdaspur, 53% of the Muslim majority given to India. Under what dispensation? Firozpur, 52, 53, 54% gave away a water headquarters to India. Pani and contiguity is today what the dilemma we face today. I'm sorry to have taken up your time, but बहुत कम लोग ये बातें करते हैं जो मैंने आज कर रहा हूँ. हम आज की सिर्फ बात करते हैं और ये कश्मीर की कल क्या स्टेटमेंट थी, यूएन में क्या हो रहा है, फलां क्या हो रहा है, बुनियाद हमारी जो थी वहाँ से ख़राब हुई और मैंने इसलिए पिछले 100 साल की बात की है. माजरत से डॉक्टर साहब, I take up your time. और I feel I'm one of those. I've gone through. I'm not a student of, like you are perhaps, of these things, but I read a lot to keep myself informed. And I have felt extreme unhappiness the way the British left at the time of partition. They had a total injustice in their minds. And unfortunately, because they had produced the plan on the 18th of August, they did not make it public on the 14th day of independence in Karachi when the Honorable M.A. Jinnah made that super speech of 11th of August. वो मैं अपनी जेब में carry करता हूँ. Because what he had diagnosed on the 11th of August has not changed a bit in 1972. I can.
नाज़रीन, आप गुफ्तगू सुन रहे थे सैयद फ़खर इमाम की, जो कि चेयरमैन हैं कश्मीर कमेटी के। कश्मीर कॉन्फ्रेंस जारी है जिससे खिताब कर रहे हैं सैयद फ़खर इमाम और मकबूजा कश्मीर की मौजूदा सूरत हाल को बयान कर रहे थे सैयद फ़खर इमाम। और ख़ास तौर पे उनका ये कहना था कि तक़सीम हिंद का नामुकम्मल एजेंडा है कश्मीर, और तक़सीम हिंद के मौके पर कश्मीरियों के साथ नाइंसाफ़ी की गई। इस वक्त मौजूदा सूरत हाल को ख़ास तौर पर उजागर करते हुए सैयद फ़खर इमाम का ये कहना था कि मकबूजा जम्मू